So there you have it. Our college football playoff 12-team field is officially set. Now, how do we feel about this? Did the committee get it right? It doesn't really matter at this point, but we'll give you our thoughts regardless. Make sure you're locked in right here. Make sure you are subscribed. The season right now is resetting. We love the regular season. We think the regular season of college football is the greatest thing that sports has to offer. However, we're jumping into part 2 of that season now in this 12-team format. Want y'all a part of it. Got a lot of electric matchups. Got a lot of tremendous storylines. We're just getting started. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. So let's just start with taking a look at what the 12-team field is set to be. If I'm looking at the committee, I think they got it right within the context of what they have put this field together as throughout the course of the season. At number 1, no surprise, you got Oregon. They will play the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee. More on that in a second. Georgia at number 2, they'll play the winner of Notre Dame, Indiana. Boise State getting a bye. They play the winner of SMU, Penn State. Now, I'll pause right here really quickly. I don't think Boise State deserves to be the 3 seed. My opinion. I think the Big 12 as a conference is much more of a gauntlet than the Mountain West is, and I think Arizona State deserves to be that 3 seed. However, based on what the committee has said throughout the entirety of this season, you give them credit for being consistent. We do dock them for 0 buffalo wings and 0 appetizers or anything else that would resemble a watch party from what Heather Dennett showed us yesterday on her Twitter sphere. Regardless, Boise State at 3. They'll play the winner of SMU, Penn State. Arizona State at 4. I'll say this. I would not want to play ASU in that second round of the college football playoff. Cam Scadaboo, the Dr. Seuss character kind of name, and Kenny Dillingham cutting promos after every single game because that's what they're doing right now in the Valley. Like Arizona State with Sam Leavitt, who was, a force yesterday as well. Xavier Guillory, no Jordan Tyson. That's terrible for Arizona State, but Xavier Guillory stepped up in a massive way. Arizona State's going to be very, very intriguing in that second round of the college football playoff, obviously, with them getting a bye. They will play the winner of Texas and Clemson. Now, I'm glad that Texas is at 5 because I think when you look at their body of work, man, with their only losses being to the SEC champion in Georgia and yesterday's loss coming in overtime against Georgia, I think Texas has as good a case as any to be that 5 seed. Now, I don't think that 5 seed is quite as sweet a spot as we thought it was going to be throughout the course of the season because before we're thinking, hey, you get the 5 seed, man, you play the G5 rep that first round of the college football playoff, and then you probably play the Big 12 champ. Well, it has not worked out that way. Actually, you get the ACC champ in Clemson, a playoff Dabo and a team that's got a lot of belief right now after beating SMU in the ACC title game. You play them in the first round, and then you do actually play the Big 12 champ, but like I just said, the Big 12 champ is much more of a wagon than I think we even anticipated they would be going into the playoffs. So we thought it'd be a better spot for Texas. Actually, I think Penn State kind of got one of the more navigable paths of this whole thing. You want to talk about teams that don't get a bye in the college football playoff. They play SMU to start. SMU showed now. That thing could have got ugly now. Give Rhett Lashley a lot of credit and that team a lot of credit for kind of collecting themselves and holding their water. That thing could have gotten ugly against Clemson now. Okay, so I do think SMU is better for having played a front like Clemson and kind of knowing what that's going to require to beat a team like that going forward. But Penn State, man, if you thought Clemson was a tough task, you got Abdul Carter coming in your living room if you're SMU. So I like that draw for Penn State. And then if you beat SMU, if you're Penn State, you play Boise State in the second round. Now, Ashton Genty is going to be a problem for anyone they play in the college football playoff. Make that very clear. But I will say, if I have to pick a team to play out of that group of 4 that gets a bye, Boise State might be my first pick off the board. So Penn State at 6, very navigable path. Now Notre Dame at number 7. If you had Notre Dame higher than Penn State, I wouldn't have a major issue with you. I think what Penn State showed last night against Oregon gives me a lot more confidence in where they're seated. But Notre Dame, man, they have earned their way in. Everyone says NIU this, NIU that. Notre Dame left no doubt. They left no margin for conversation with how they finished the year. Number one margin, speaking of margin, number 1 victory margin in college football to finish the season. So I'm cool with Notre Dame at 7. They'll play Indiana. Now, this is going to be fun to watch. I'm very fascinated to see how that crowd is split under Touchdown Jesus because Indiana now, I don't know what the drive time is from Bloomington to South Bend, but I know it's in the state. So you got, what do you want to call it, the Steve Wiltfong Bowl, the Pat McAfee Bowl. I don't know what you want to call it. It's in Indiana, 2 teams from the state. That's going to be a lot of fun. More on that in a little bit when it comes to just the exposure for the sport. It'll be a lot of fun. Probably the best round 1 matchup is who they have seated at 8 versus who they have seated at 9. Tennessee goes to Columbus, Ohio, and plays the Buckeyes. Kirk Herbstreit made a very interesting point that I agree with during this whole rankings reveal broadcast. He's like, man, I would have loved for the Buckeyes to get out of Columbus for that first round. Because let's be honest, it's toxic vibes right now. After losing to Michigan for the fourth year in a row, that first play call that the Buckeye faithful aren't that excited about might be some boo birds. Not in full effect, but might be a couple boos here and there, a couple of Ryan Day naysayers making their voice heard. That kind of energy has a chance to snowball in some respects if it doesn't go your way early. And like you can't have that in a playoff game. You got Tennessee coming to town. And Tennessee, quite frankly, we got some thoughts on this matchup coming out on this channel a little bit later in the day. But like Tennessee can do what Michigan just did to Ohio State. Make no mistake about it. Like as physical as Michigan is, they do not have the weapons on the perimeter to make you play an honest box against the run game, and they still were able to run the football. They got Dylan Sampson, does Tennessee. They got weapons on the perimeter to make you play honest within that run game. Like, it's going to be a really good matchup. I cannot wait for that one. Obviously, Ohio State at 8, Tennessee at 9. Indiana, we touched on them at 10. We're going to find out now. We're going to find out about IU because there's been a lot of takes around them deserving or not deserving to be in the college football playoff. Based on what they've done this year, they're in. The one blemish is an ugly blemish to Ohio State. No way around it, but they're in. The best part about this whole deal with the 12-team playoff is we get to find out on the field. Now, I've said many times I was and still am, quite frankly, a 4-team playoff kind of guy, but if Indiana runs the table and finds their way in the national championship, I will shut my mouth and I'll apologize to all the folks that were pro 12-team the entire time. SMU at 11, I'm curious now. I said this before, I'll say it again. I'm curious now if them stepping under the heavy bar from a talent perspective, playing Clemson, getting a chance to see what that feels like against better talent. I wonder if that doesn't benefit them in this college football playoff run. They'll have their work cut out for them against Penn State. One interesting thing, though, you watch that game, though, with Penn State and Oregon. The style of play that Oregon has, I think, is a little bit more physical than what SMU will bring to the table. But Dylan Gabriel was throwing the ball all around the yard last night, 3 for 4 touchdowns. They were carving up that Penn State zone. Can Kevin Jennings do that? If he can, you force Drew Aller and that team to have to chase again, and I wonder if they have another 37-point performance in them if they get in that spot. Worth noting. Then Clemson at 12. Hey, playoff Dabo now. Playoff. I mean, he is one of 2 coaches in this college football playoff bracket with a national title to his name. The other's named Kirby Smart. Okay, so I wouldn't count out Dabo just yet, especially with the belief they have right now. Nothing more dangerous than someone who's just happy to be there, and I think that's Clemson after last night, finding their way into the dance by winning the ACC. So again, let's reset the conversation a little bit. Within the logic of how the playoff committee is operating here, I think they got it right. Now, I have my own objections as to the 12 best teams. I think the prompt in itself is ridiculous if that's how we're going to talk about it and say this is the 12 best teams. It is what it is. Here's the issue that I think we all should have with how this playoff field shook out. I'm cool with where they're seated. I have a frustration with how the seeding works out in relation to who's supposed to get an advantage in the college football playoff. Oregon's the best example of this. Hey, Oregon, congratulations. You ran the table in one of the most difficult conferences in college football in the Big Ten. You won the conference over Penn State last night, a team that gave you all you could handle and then some. Congratulations. You get a bye. And then what's your reward? The winner of Ohio State, Tennessee. Like, to be the 1 seed, you're supposed to have the lesser opponent in this whole situation. I'm looking at what the most navigable path is here. I talked about Penn State already. How about Georgia? I mean, Georgia as the 2 seed, they get Indiana versus Notre Dame, the winner of that game, and then they'll get either Boise State, SMU, or Penn State. I would venture to say Georgia will be favored in every single matchup against all those teams I mentioned. Now, that I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but I'm saying they will be favored in every single matchup, I believe, against all those teams. Georgia has, I think, the best path here. It would make a lot more sense. We said it on a previous video last week. It would make a lot more sense to play the first round, reseed to ensure that the top seed is afforded the advantage that they were supposed to get here by being the top seed. I digress. We mentioned the 5 seed already. Texas playing Clemson that first round is going to be awesome. Playing Scadaboo and company in the next round, whether it's Clemson or Texas, is going to be a difficult task. I'm curious to see here, too, last thing I'll say, I'm curious to see how much momentum plays a factor here. Because if you're Arizona State, like we just mentioned, you're a hot team right now. I don't know if I want the bye. I might want to play someone in the first round tomorrow. Like, hey, we got Scadaboo rolling. We got Sam Levitt dealing. We got Xavier Guillory winning one-on-one matchups. We got Belief. We got Juice. Like, let's play tomorrow. We'll play in a parking lot. We don't care. Now you got 3 weeks to rest, recover. The whole rest versus rust discussion, I think, becomes very interesting as this whole thing continues to evolve. But like for Notre Dame, talk about momentum. They had their bye this week. We asked Marcus Freeman about it during the offseason and said, hey, do you have a conversation with folks in the administration to try and work something out to where you can get a bye the first round of the college football playoff? And he's like, we just want to get in. We'll take our bye during conference title weekend. We'll go from there. I can't wait to watch this. This is going to be awesome. Speaking to the home fields of this whole deal, Penn State with wideout energy, or a wideout in general, you would hope is what they have when SMU comes to town. That's going to be so cool. I mean, we talk about Notre Dame, the entire world now who watches the sport of college football here in the playoff, which I think will be dialed up quite a bit, getting to see a game under touchdown Jesus. Now, we dunk a lot on Ohio State and their fan base with how they're, maybe not treating the Ohio State program right now relative to Ryan Day and the loss to Michigan, but like, I bet that place is turned up at least from the jump for a night game against Tennessee, which is what I believe they have to start. It's going to be awesome. The exposure for the sport, for folks who wouldn't usually watch college football but will be tuned in for the college football playoff, to be able to see how special a home atmosphere is in a Happy Valley, in a South Bend, I mean, in a Columbus, in Austin, Texas. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. So we have our objections. We have our disagreements. There's no perfect way to do this. I would get Nick Saban and Joel Klatt and Kirk Herbstreit on the committee tomorrow. I think we maybe have a bit of a better situation that way. But like, for what it is, the season resets right now, and we're here for it. Lock in. Make sure you're subscribed. We want y'all a part of this. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.